Welcome to the Duckpin Podcast with your host, Brian Griffiths. And now, here's Brian.
I am extremely happy today to be joined by a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show. You may recognize his voice as the announcer of this very program.
There you go.
He is a WBAL radio host. He is a professor and alumnus of the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. He is the president of the Institute for Liberty, and we are going to talk about absolutely none of those things today on the show. My good friend, Andrew Langer. Andrew, always good to be with you, man.
Always good to be here, Brian.
So let's talk. We're talking about Thanksgiving today. Thanksgiving, this is going to set to air the week before Thanksgiving.
So this week.
And, so this week on Wednesday, which is when people are watching this. And so two things I want to talk to you about today, two things that we're both very passionate about. Music, and food, which I think certainly looking at me, you would know the answer to that second one. Let's start with music. Like, for example, lots of radio stations, commercial radio stations, I know in the Washington, Baltimore markets, they've already gone all Christmas, but we don't have a lot of Thanksgiving songs. You know, when I think of Thanksgiving music, there are two songs that I ultimately think of that get any radio play at all. The first, obviously, Arlo Guthrie's Alice's Restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which isn't even really a Thanksgiving song. It's an anti-war song more than anything else. And, Adam Sandler's Thanksgiving song back when Adam Sandler was funny. And, so am I missing any songs? Why is there not more popular Thanksgiving songs?
Well, there is the one Bing Crosby song from Holiday Inn, I've Got Plenty to Be Thankful For. I'm sure there are other sort of thankful music, but, you don't really associate Thanksgiving with Christmas, right? With Christmas, you have Christmas carols, you're sitting there, you're watching the lights. What are you doing at Thanksgiving if you're not stuffing your face with turkey or traveling in the car? I guess you would listen to music in the car, but then you're probably already thinking about Christmas music. Otherwise, you're watching football, and so it's not a holiday where music plays a big part of it. I mean, that's the thing, is that there's such a massive tradition around music at Christmas, both the religious stuff and then the non-religious music, and then there was a period of time where in pop music, just about every pop artist would do something special at Christmas time. So, you had that every year. The Beatles, for instance, their fan club would do a little album, not an album, but like a 45 for their fans. So, with that, then you've got the Thanksgiving theme for the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, which is actually, I'll tell you something, I actually almost prefer that to Linus and Lucy. Mm-hmm. Not that being said, the Vince Guaraldi Trio's Charlie Brown Christmas album is a great album, but the theme, I would say the Thanksgiving theme is that much better. So that tends to be on rotation. Actually, that tends to be on rotation even not around the Thanksgiving time. And it's funny because I have a nephew now who is 4. Mm-hmm. And we wound up having an impromptu sort of trial run for Thanksgiving with my folks. My brothers were down, and I've chased my wife upstairs because she's on a conference call too. My brothers were down, and my nephew, I don't think had ever consciously had turkey before. And then I started singing the Adam Sandler turkey song, and he thought that was hysterical. So, Adam Sandler, good, and catering to the 4-year-olds in this world.
I half wonder, when you run up to Christmas, in the month before Christmas, not looking at it from the secular point, not the religious point of view. Christmas, things are starting to wind down. You've got the end of the year, schools are letting out, people are having Christmas parties. Whereas with Thanksgiving, so often, I remember when I was growing up, we didn't travel for Thanksgiving like a lot of people did.
Yeah.
We had school up until the day before Thanksgiving. There was none of this Thanksgiving week that a lot of schools have now. So it really was kind of like just on you all of a sudden. Talk about Wednesday being the Wednesday before Thanksgiving traditionally. Sure. I'm sure it won't be this year. The busiest travel day of the year, and people just kind of go from their regular life and just jump right into Thanksgiving without having that, build up, Christmas, like you said. I'm wondering, and I'll get your thoughts on this too. I'm wondering if that's one of the reasons we don't kind of have that popular culture Thanksgiving situation. I mean, you mentioned Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, and
Yeah.
other than, I think there was a Garfield Thanksgiving special back when I was growing up, I don't remember a whole lot of Thanksgiving specials on TV either. So I'm wondering if this is just based on the short buildup to Thanksgiving Day itself, whether or not that lends to the lack of popular music for Thanksgiving.
That's just it, right? With Thanksgiving creates a real gateway for the Christmas season. It's a finite date. It's usually just about a month before Christmas, so it's a good way to open it up. The problem, of course, is that Thanksgiving, the date changes, so it's not December 25th. It's the fourth Thursday in November. I always forget which one. But the point is that because it floats, you never know what the period of time is going to be between Halloween, right? Halloween should be the kickoff of the Thanksgiving season, and to some extent it is. But because you never know what that window is, it's kind of hard to plan for it. But again, I think it much more has to do. I think you hit the nail on the head with culturally. Christmas is all about a different set of festivities, right? Festivities with family, festivity with friends, festivities with coworkers. And so, and lots of different kinds of parties. Thanksgiving is Thanksgiving. It's the one day, right? It's the one day, and generally you're gathering with your family. I mean, we have this relatively new tradition, right? Friendsgiving, which I've always wanted to do. But it's and in the past, a couple of times, I think we've tried to invite friends for Thanksgiving. In fact, last year, I think it was Thanksgiving last year, we did it all together where it was my family, and then my friend Laura, who's been like a sister to me. I officiated at her wedding. Her whole family was here too, and it was just this massive crowd, and it was great. Don't get me wrong. I love Laura and I love her family. Not sure everybody kind of gelled together in the right ways, but it was certainly a fun weekend. Actually, it's funny because last year was the first year, and I know you want to talk about food. Last year, the plan was, it's funny, my brother started dating a new girl, and we were going back and forth as to whether or not we were going to smoke a turkey or we were going to deep fry the turkey. And she said, why don't you do both? Why don't you smoke it first and then deep fry it? And our minds were blown. Now, we wound up just deep frying it because my brother couldn't get off his tush and get the turkey on the smoker early enough. But it was, we did a regular roast turkey and we did a fried turkey, and that was fun.
Let's talk about your turkey this year. First off, I've never tried a turkey. I've never fried a turkey.
Oh, fried a turkey.
Yeah.
I thought you said you never tried a turkey. I'm like, wait, how's that possible?
I trust me, I know my way around a turkey.
Yes.
To eat it, that is, but not to cook it. Anybody who's seen me in the kitchen knows that is a disaster in the making. One year I made pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving, not because we needed it, but just because I was going to do it. And so I made the pumpkin pie, and it was great, except because I am an incompetent baker/cook, I bought one of those graham cracker crust.
Okay.
Those ones you buy at the store.
Sure.
And baked it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a rookie mistake, my friend.
The filling was fantastic.
You are supposed to, you can, in fact, if you want to have a coherent crust, you can brush those with melted butter and bake them for 10 minutes, and then you put a cold filling inside them. It's funny because last year's fried turkey was fantastic. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. So I think fried turkey is great. The problem is, unless you have some way of creating a gravy beforehand, when you fry a turkey, you don't get pan drippings. And I love pan drippings. So, I am still very much a traditionalist when it comes to this. It's actually funny on the other side of it because I did try smoking a turkey a couple weeks ago, for the first time. Now, this. Your viewers, listeners don't. So my brothers and I started doing competitive barbecue about 18 months ago, and we've met with some success. We met with some challenges, and it's one of these things where when my brothers are in town, it becomes the essence of being langers is that we tend to overdo things. So when my brother was down for his birthday in October, my baby brother. He was talking. He was talking about ordering an alligator, no joke, from down south. He was talking about ordering a suckling pig, and I'm like, "How about this? How about I just smoke a turkey?" And I did. I got it. I think I butterflied it and I put it out. I just used a Weber grill, a Weber kettle grill, and I smoked it, and it was really good. The problem again is it is very tough to get pan drippings, and I like gravy with my turkey. So let me go back to the frying of the turkey. The frying of the turkey is great. You can do it in any one of a number of ways. You got to make sure the turkey is completely thawed, and you use a boatload of oil. Literally, I mean, it's a massive container of oil that you use, and you use it once, and then you have to get rid of all that oil. You got to wait for it to cool. You pour it back in its container, and you get rid of it. You can use that hot oil for frying other things. So we made last year. We also fried Brussels sprouts, and we made some hush puppies at the last minute, and that all turned out really well.
Now, did those taste like the turkey?
No, I mean you get a little bit of no. I mean, the thing about Brussels sprouts is they have a very savory quality when you fry them, and we tend to make Brussels sprouts around holiday times anyway now. And I don't know if are you a Brussels sprouts fan?
I am not a Brussels sprouts person.
Are you not a Brussels sprouts fan because when you were a kid you had steamed Brussels sprouts?
I didn't really eat Brussels sprouts as a kid. I tried them later as an adult, and my late sister-in-law, actually made them once and said, "You actually have to try them." And I tried them and just gave her looks like, "I love you, Liz, but I can't."
Time out. But were they roasted, and how were they cooked? Do you remember?
I think they were roasted.
Okay. So that's too bad then, because when you either fry them or roast them, you get what's called the Maillard reaction, which is the browning and the sugars caramelize, and some of if there's proteins in it, they caramelize too. And I do my roasted Brussels sprouts with bacon, and everything's better with bacon. Sometimes a little brown sugar in the pan too. But fried, they were fantastic. You drizzle them with some balsamic and maybe throw in some Dijon mustard or Parmesan cheese, and so you did that. No, the hush puppies. No, the hush puppies. I don't remember if they had a poultry aftertaste. They were really good. I mean, I think if you fry anything in peanut oil,
it's definitely a good start. No matter
it comes out well. So it's funny because this year Thanksgiving is changing. So we were originally, my brother and his girlfriend were gonna do a whole big thing, but then they've had some workplace COVID incidents, and they're very concerned about my parents, and rightly so. So we've completely scaled back. My in-laws had also decided they were going to scale back, so we're doing separate meals. So it's going to be much smaller. And whereas I was not going to be cooking next week, as of this past weekend, I am now going to do Thanksgiving dinner. And I like that. I mean, because, I like to cook. I like to cook for a crowd. I don't get stressed out by it. I actually enjoy it very much. It's like, I know what to do, and I know the steps that need to be done. And so it's so funny. I got a really good friend who is as big a foodie as I am, and is into technique and interesting recipes as much as I am, but he gets so stressed out when he cooks, and I don't know if that's part of it. Like there's a certain pain and pleasure thing that goes along with it, but it's like I used to get more stressed in the kitchen, but this is more than 15 years ago. If I was doing lots of stuff, just because I hadn't gotten it down, and sometimes I was trying out new things. But now I've sort of got it all in the back of my head, and I know what to do. So, it's no big deal to say, okay, I can do a turkey. I'm going to do mashed potatoes, Brussels sprouts. I think I finally nailed my homemade green bean casserole, homemade stuffing, obviously. And then my mother-in-law is going to make some things as well. But, and that's a simple, straightforward menu that'll, I don't know how detailed you want me to get into with this, but
oh no, please go ahead. I mean, I think this is the interesting stuff. Is how to make it happen.
All right, so here's the secret. A lot of folks are really, they're really big on the presentation of the turkey, and if you've heard, Alton Brown talks about this. A lot of the major chefs and the major chef entertainers talk about this. A turkey it's not like roasting a chicken, which is a much smaller thing. But, when you roast a turkey, you're talking about two different kinds of meat with two different densities that cook at two different rates. So you have the light meat and you have the dark meat. And then you are also, depending on if you stuff your turkey or if you don't stuff your turkey. My dog wants to join us. I'm just going to leave him here. The issue becomes you are either having to cook a big ball of food in the middle, like a big mass of food in the middle of your bird, or you're trying to bring a big a cavity of air to temperature so that the inside cooks. And the best way to deal with that is to just flip the bird over and cut out the backbone. It's called butterflying it or spatchcocking it. And it makes your turkey, I'm going to pick my dog up here. It makes your turkey look a little weird. This is Charlie. Whenever I talk to somebody on Zoom, Charlie gets jealous. So he wants to be a part of the conversation. So you cut out the backbone and you flatten it. And so you've taken what is a three-dimensional ball, and it's now a two-dimensional flat object. And that way both the breast meat and the thighs can cook evenly, and you don't have to worry about it. Now, the other secret, and it's now become very cliche and everybody talks about it, but brining your turkey. Because what happens is brining does a couple of different things. Number one, it keeps your turkey, number one, if you have a turkey that's not quite unthawed, it'll help get your turkey thawed. Number two, it helps keep your turkey moist, and there's a lot of reasons for this, having to do with the bioengineering of cells. I'll give you the quick and dirty. Water that has a salt and sugar solution in it has a different pressure than the water that's inside cells. So that pressure opens up the cells of the turkey meat, and then it reaches equilibrium. And so all of that good brine goes into the turkey meat. So you got the flavoring. And then, interestingly enough, the salt and sugar helps conduct the heat through the bird, so the bird cooks faster and more evenly. But it also gives you this great cushion so that you're not overcooking your breast meat, because that's always the problem. This is what happened to my mother over the weekend. My mother cooked her turkey. The breast meat was finished. In fact, the breast meat was a little dry, and the thighs weren't quite done. But, you do this and you get a little bit of cushion. And depending on the size of your bird, and I don't remember, you always have to look at the time and temperature of your oven. But you're basically, it'll be the turkey will be cooked enough when you can rotate your thighs, and they're basically so close to coming off. I mean, it used to be this thing, Brian. If you wanted to keep your turkey whole, and you wanted to get everything to finish at roughly the same time, you would start your turkey with the thigh side up, like if you hadn't cut it open, the back would be up, and the back and the dark meat would get a head start, and then you would have to pull this. Imagine you pull your roasting pan out of the oven, and you have to manhandle this hot bird, and you have to flip it over. There are lots of ways to do it, but it's just so much easier to butterfly it, then brine it. Then you pull it out and you let it sit and let it dry, and you get it completely dry, and then you bake it in the oven, and it cuts down the time quite a bit. It just works out so well.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely sounds like it's a quicker way. It's an easier way. I mean, I can't imagine, again, I don't cook the turkey. I just eat it. The part where you're trying to flip a hot bird, a big bird, and trying to do that in a way that's not going to, make a mess of your kitchen, because you're trying to use the kitchen for other stuff.
Yeah.
Too. You've got people in there, but also in a way that actually, like you said, cooks it evenly. It makes a lot of sense. And
here's another tip, by the way. Unless you're doing turkey for a crowd, don't go above 14 pounds for your bird. Because again, then you're talking about possibly overcooking your white meat before your dark meat gets done, even if you are butterflying it. If you want to cook turkey for a crowd, just cook 2 turkeys, and either cook them in separate ovens or cook them at different times and just have one in reserve. It's just the best way to do this. It works out so just tremendously well.
Now let's talk about stuffing.
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways to cook stuffing. The big controversy for people who make stuffing is, do you cook it inside the turkey or outside the turkey?
Okay.
Where are you on this?
So well, if you butterfly your turkey, then you don't get that. So you just don't do it. There's no cavity for it. The problem again is you have this mass. Charlie, all right, get up there, buddy. Come on, go on up and sit next to there we go. He's gonna go. There's a little sideboard here, and he'll sit there and he'll watch. And there we go. Sorry, as I say this. So the issue is, if you have your bird whole, right? Again, if you stuff it with stuffing, first of all, you can never stuff it with enough stuffing to feed the crowd. So you're probably going to make a pan of stuffing or dressing anyway. Mm-hmm. But then it also adds to the cooking time. So some folks will tell you, if you're going to do that, then what you have to do is you have to start your stuffing beforehand. So you essentially microwave your stuffing, bring it up to a certain temperature, and then stuff it back in your bird. The problem, of course, is that then you're dealing with stuffing hot stuffing into a bird, and that's a real problem. Now, I just go simple and straightforward. I cook my dressing or stuffing in a pan, alongside or in a different oven. In fact, what happens is, right, so when you pull your turkey out, you're gonna, and we'll talk about carving in a minute. When you pull your turkey out, you're gonna have your turkey rest for at least 45 minutes. You keep it a little covered, but that helps the juices redistribute. That helps everything sort of settle down, and it works out. So 45 minutes is enough time for you to put all of your side dishes that need to bake into your ovens. So anything that needs to go in, whether it's marshmallow or pecan topped sweet potatoes or your roasted Brussels sprouts or whatever. Stuffing, all that can go into the oven afterwards, after you pull the bird out, and that all bakes so that you can pull that out and it goes. And then at the same time, you're also making your gravy. So it's interesting because I will go, I've done in the past the White Castle stuffing, which I love. It's a gimmick. It's a fun gimmick. You never make that your only stuffing. It's much easier if you have access to fresh White Castle hamburgers.
Any White Castle and fresh are that's kind of a loosey.
No. Listen, let's be fair.
I'm not a fan of White
quality, but a White Castle burger is going to just have come off the steaming griddle. So, but the point is, I do like a little bit of fruit in my stuffing. I've had oyster stuffing; it's fine. Sausage and cornbread stuffing is good. I like a basic white bread stuffing with celery, onions, and usually maybe some apples and raisins. Sometimes I will make it into a bread pudding where I'll have a little bit of egg that I mix with chicken broth, or I'll just pour chicken broth over it. I will say this much as a handy tip. Again, you want to cut time. You saute your onions and your celery a day or two before in butter with your seasoning for your stuffing, and then you put it into a container, a Tupperware container, Ziploc bag, and you set it aside so that you just mix it in with your stuffing mix and pour your broth over it before you bake it. It's a good sort of shortcut. It's a time saver on Thanksgiving Day.
Interesting. And I'm kind of with you. I'm a very simple stuffing person. I grew up, my family didn't make real stuffing. I'll be honest. So I grew up with stovetop. So,
sure.
Like many people. So even now it's like, my mother-in-law makes, my wife will make stuffing, good stuff, but it's a simple stuff and it's great. Yeah. And it's fantastic.
Yeah. The key thing with the vegetables is what you got to do is you got to make sure that everything is cooked enough so you're not getting crunchy raw vegetables or raw fruit or whatever in it, and that's a whole big thing. That's another reason why you saute it in advance, because then when it is baking for 45 minutes, it's going to retain some of it. So anyway, so back to the back to all this though. So your turkey, you let your turkey come out, and you let it sit, and as you're sitting, you'll do the gravy. We'll talk about gravy in a minute. But what happens is, when you're carving it, a lot of folks will go and they will just slice, off the breast. They'll make these long breast slices. That's not what you do. In fact, I wish I had a way of showing you on video. So what I do is I cut off because they're so easy to remove, you cut off the dark meat quarters first. So the thigh leg combination on both sides. And then you and then you take off the wing, and you can pull out the little drumette inside the wing. But then what you do is you take the breast meat and you slice alongside the wishbone at the top, the breastplate, and you slice down, and then you slice around the bottom, and so you pull the breast off as one big piece. You rotate it, right? So it's like this. You rotate it so that it's like that. You'll know it when you see it, and you can get images online. And then you cut almost like swordfish steaks or tuna steaks out of it. Slices that are this thick, maybe a little bigger, depending on how you do. They're good, substantial pieces of white meat, and then you trim off the dark meat in whatever way you can. But a lot of folks make that mistake of sort of these long, thin slices. You don't have to do that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, you wind up slathering it in gravy anyway.
Yes.
Cranberry sauce. Where are you? There are some people who swear by canned cranberry sauce.
Absolutely.
For years, that's all I ever had access to, and I think that stuff sucks.
Well, okay, so
homemade cranberry sauce, I'm all in for though.
So we have always I have a couple of my daughters tend to like the canned cranberry stuff, which is fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've made once Susan Stanberg's, she's an NPR commentator, her cranberry relish, which is like a sour cream and onion and cranberry thing, which is really good, but I'm like the only one who likes that. No, when I was growing up, we had a very simple thing, and it's a 1 part to 1 part. It's like 1 cup cranberries to 1 cup orange juice with a little bit of sugar and a little bit of nutmeg and a little bit of salt, and you boil it until the cranberries pop, and then you let it sit because the pectin in the cranberries gels, and so you get an orangey cranberry jelly relish that's really good. That's what we've tended to do. As I said, my wife's family, they make something that they call the pink stuff, which is a cranberry pineapple whipped cream kind of
it's kind of like what do they call it? Like a Waldorf salad type.
It's almost like a Waldorf salad, only with cranberries, and they tend to like that. I've done in the past some kind of spicy cranberry chutneys every once in a while. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. You got to get the balance of flavors, but that homemade cranberry sauce, the orange juice and cranberries is a very easy thing to do. Again, you can make it in advance if you want, and it's we literally, my mother never bought. My mother wasn't a great. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say this. My mother was not the adventurous cook, but this is one thing that she would insist on every year, was the homemade cranberry sauce.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Dessert. Pumpkin pie.
Hold on.
Oh,
now we got to talk gravy here, because this is a big thing, and I pride myself on my gravy. Because I know my mother-in-law is not going to watch this. We had an unfortunate incident where, and I am a purist here. I'm not a snob about many things. I say this, and you're going to laugh, and other people are going to laugh. I am a snob about my gravy, because it's not hard to do. But so it's very simple. You take your pan that you've roasted your turkey in or baked your turkey in, and you can either, if you've made a stock with your giblets, you can use those. I don't really use giblets all that much, but let's just say you take your pan and you deglaze the pan with your chicken broth, low sodium chicken broth, because if you season your turkey well, there'll be plenty of salt in that pan, right? You deglaze the pan, you pour it off, and you let that sit in a fat separating container. Do you have one of those, Brian? A fat separator?
I have to ask my wife. Yeah,
all right, it doesn't. Even if you don't, a bowl will do. And what happens is when you let the pan juices settle, there's a layer of rendered turkey fat or chicken fat or whatever. And if you're like me, you usually have a can or jar of duck fat around the house. Yes, I have a jar of duck fat usually around the house.
Who doesn't?
So should you. Let me tell you. You've never lived until you've made popcorn and duck fat. It is life-changing. But the point is, so you take that fat, you put it back in your pan, or you put it in the pan you're going to make gravy in, you turn up the heat to high, you let it start coming to a bubble, and then you take your flour. Now, again, because your pan drippings are going to be so seasoned, you don't have to season your flour. But you take, a half cup of flour basically, and you have equal portions fat. So if you have a half a cup of fat in there, half a cup of flour, you whisk it all together because you're making a roux, right? And this is classic sort of Cajun New Orleans cuisine. Fat and flour cooking together. You want to cook it up just a little bit. You want to make sure every fat granule is covered. See, Brian, when my mom used to make gravy, she would do this thing, and some people still do it, which is you'd sort of reverse it, where she would take milk and she would put, flour in her milk, and she would cover the glass of milk with a piece of saran wrap and a rubber band, and she would shake it up so that the flour would get incorporated into the milk. The problem is you run the risk of having lumpy gravy. Whisking your flour in hot fat will get rid of the lumps. Then you pour your pan juices in and you whisk it around, and just as it gets thickened, you then pour your milk in until it's the right consistency, and you turn it off the heat and you let it sit. And you taste it, and if you need some pepper, you put some pepper in. I remember there was this one thing where I'd taken, and it's not hard to do. I don't want to sound like it's painstaking because it really isn't. But it is. There's a world of difference between homemade gravy and jarred gravy and canned gravy, or what some people do, which is then they'll supplement their gravy and dump a few cans of cream of chicken soup in there, which is what my mother-in-law did. And I had this beautiful pan gravy, and my mother-in-law was like, "Oh, we need more." Dumps the. I'm like, if you wanted more gravy, I could just make more gravy. It's, again, not hard to do. But anyway, so you have your gravy, and before we sort of move on, so you always want, Brian, at your table, and depending on how many people you have, you need your turkey, you need your cranberry sauce, you need your gravy, you need one or two starches, and I don't consider the sweet potatoes to be a starch, so mashed potatoes or some kind of potato stuffing. Then you need greens, and the greens help to both cut the richness of the turkey and the gravy, and also to add some nutritive value. Your green bean casserole, your Brussels sprouts, roasted squash, roasted mashed potato, roasted sweet potatoes, whatever. Sometimes we'll do a corn dish, cream corn, just regular corn. In fact, now that I think about it, I may have to serve some corn because one of my kids does not like either Brussels sprouts or green bean casserole.
So we always have the corn, because the corn, you see, this is how you do it. This is how a pro eats. You put down your mashed potatoes. You put a little indentation there on the top of your mashed potatoes, and then you plop the corn right on top of it. So you got to get starch on starch there.
Yes. You're talking about making a KFC famous bowl.
Exactly.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Except I've been doing it since I was 3 years old.
Sure. Absolutely. So I may have to pull out some corn for one of my kids for next week. But so there you go with all that. And I'll tell you, the Brussels sprouts, you cut them in half. You toss them with uncooked bacon, thick cut bacon. You roast that for 45 minutes. You toss them about halfway through at about 450 degrees. That works. I'm gonna tell you, homemade green bean casserole, real quick, Brian. You saute mushrooms, sliced mushrooms, in butter. You add a whole, couple of different spices, salt, pepper, whatever. You add a little bit of soy sauce and a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, a couple of dashes of each. Then, as the mushrooms have released their juices, right? Because that's what happens. You then toss them again in some flour. You let the flour cook, let the mushrooms get coated. Then you add your half and half or your heavy cream until it just coats the mushrooms. All right. So what you're doing is you're essentially making your version of a cream of mushroom soup, which was what a lot of people used to make their green bean casserole, right? So then you toss the mushroom cream flour mixture with your green beans, and I just use plain frozen green beans. Usually you should thaw them out. You don't need to pre-cook them, but they should be thawed. Put them in a dish, cover them with your French fried onions, and put them in the oven. But again, you'll never go back to You'll never ever go back to cream of mushroom soup. So dessert, right?
Yeah.
All right, because I think we covered everything. Yeah, I mean, listen, we've made desserts in the past. If I'm making dessert for Thanksgiving, I'm going to make a very simple apple crumble, personally. Sour apples that are good, solid, and will retain their shape when they're baking with a streusel topping. I love that. I'm not a pumpkin pie guy, but I know other people are. I think we're just going to, but pie usually is the way to do it, right? An apple pie, a pumpkin pie.
Yeah, we're usually pumpkin pie people. Occasionally, my mom would always make a pumpkin pie and a sweet potato pie.
Yeah.
And one year, she always swore up and down that the two tasted the same. And one year, she accidentally gave me sweet potato pie, and that was not a pleasant experience.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not a big pumpkin pie person, so it's not my thing. It's interesting because one of my daughters is a huge pumpkin pie fan. I'll do pumpkin cookies. I'll do pumpkin bread, pumpkin pie. Never, because if I'm looking at an apple pie or a cherry pie, I'm gonna go with the fruit pie, and not the pie. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So we'll do pies that night. One of my kids may make something. I don't know.
Okay. Last question about food before we get you out of here.
Sure.
Leftovers.
Oh yeah.
I'm a very simple guy. I cut up some turkey, throw in some mayonnaise, whip it up. I got a sandwich. I don't make a fancy turkey salad. It's just mayonnaise and turkey, plop it on some bread, cheese, and go. Do you do anything interesting with the leftovers? You just
I'll sometimes do like a turkey work sandwich where it's on a good roll, with gravy. You slice up you take the slices of turkey, a little stuffing, a little cranberry, a little gravy, and you put that on there. You can also do that where you sort of bake it and panini it if you want. I'm a big fan of taking leftover poultry and leftover gravy and making a pot pie. We do that, or you just casserole your leftover turkeys. The big thing for me, however, is taking the turkey carcass and making turkey stock out of it, which is not nearly as hard as it might sound. You're literally just taking that carcass, you throw it in a pot, you cover it with water, you add onions, carrots, and celery, and you boil it until sort of everything extrudes its juices, and then you've got, stock for when you do make your Thanksgiving or your Christmas turkey, or if you're going to make soup. I know people say that the L-tryptophan is a myth in a turkey, right? Puts you to sleep.
Right.
But I will say that a mug of turkey stock will make you nap. So I swear by that as something to make you sleep. But
sounds like a patent medicine.
Yeah, we just go, very straightforward with the leftovers. We just do another Thanksgiving dinner. It's actually interesting because my mother-in-law bought the turkey. There are only 6 of us who are going to be at dinner next week. And she had a 15-pound turkey, and she's like, well, do I need a bigger bird? And I'm thinking, no, for the 6 of us, that's plenty of turkey with plenty of leftovers.
Yeah, that sounds like y'all are gonna eat very well down at the Langer household this year.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
Anything you want to plug before I get you out of here?
Yeah, I'm going to be in for Eurypsy Morgan on Friday on WBL from 10 to 2. My own show on Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. And I was going to do be doing a music show towards the end of this week, but with my doing Eurypsy on Friday, I think that's kind of put the kibosh on it. So stay tuned for some one-offs. We're trying to do more of these one-offs on Facebook Live. I've got an uncle who's just turned 87. He's got a fascinating story. I want to get him in front of the camera, but also some stuff, because I know people want to, this, and this is part of the reason why we're talking like this. People are hungry for content that is not politically oriented, and so a lot of folks want to talk about music.
Yeah, and it's always a fun thing to talk about. And if we don't want to always argue about politics, we can always argue with each other about musical taste.
Absolutely, yes, without a doubt.
Which is always a lot more fun. Andrew, thanks for coming on. We'll have you again, and it's good. And we will everybody listen to on BAL, and we'll have you on again soon, my man.
Looking forward to it.
All right, thanks, Langer.
This has been the Duckpin Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and download